Have you ever opened your home to someone you trusted only to feel like they thought it belonged to them? Have you ever been taken for granted by the people closest to you, family or friends who stepped over boundaries, ignored your efforts, and left chaos in their wake? If so, you're not alone. In today's story, you'll follow a woman who faced exactly this. 20 entitled relatives moving into her house, ignoring her rules, and assuming her kindness meant they could take whatever they wanted. But this isn't just a story about frustration. It's about reclaiming your space, setting boundaries, and taking control of your life without resorting to anger or revenge. You'll learn how careful planning, quiet determination, and self-respect can restore peace even when it seems impossible. You'll see how she turns what could have been a nightmare into a lesson in empowerment and clarity. Have you ever faced a similar situation, people who took advantage of your generosity, ignored your boundaries, or treated your home or your time as if it weren't yours? If this has ever happened to you, share your experience in the comments. We want to hear your story. And as you watch, you'll gain insight into practical ways to protect yourself, stand your ground, and ensure respect in your own life. So stay with us to see how she handles her family's entitlement, what steps she takes to regain control, and how even in the quiet aftermath, she discovers peace, dignity, and freedom in the space she fought to call her own. By the end, you may feel inspired to set your own boundaries and reclaim what's rightfully yours. Has something like this ever happened to you? Let us know in the comments. I'd love to hear how you handled it. With its flaps neatly folded like wings, the box remained open on the floor. The phone rang before I had even unpacked the bedding. Without verifying the identity, I responded after wiping my hands on my jeans. I didn't have to. That was the only individual who called. Just a heads up, Calvana, we'll arrive in roughly 2 hours. On my side, there are 20 of us. You have the space, I informed them. It would be fantastic if you could prepare the rooms. And food, too. That was, of course, it. Don't pause. No. Is now a good moment? No congrats on your new location. She pretended it was a delivery alert. For a moment, I remained quiet, allowing the words to settle like dust. Because I've discovered that's the greatest thing to say when someone isn't asking for your opinion, I responded, "All right." In any case, I stood there listening to the new walls' calm creak for a while after the call ended. I had just moved in 3 days prior. The documents in the folder on the counter still had my name on it. Kinley had somehow already designated it a family lodge, even though my name was the only one. Specifically, her family. I didn't pace. I refrained from crying. I just went to the drawer in the kitchen, took out a yellow notepad, and opened it to a new page. I drew a line down the center and wrote the date at the top. On one side, I wrote food, towels, garbage bags, and sleeping arrangements. Conversely, legal, enforcement, records, and copies. I highlighted 2 copies. The house included a carport with 22 chairs. Last week, I counted them with a sense of happiness I hadn't experienced in years. Yes, exactly as I had pictured them, but with friends. Laughter and potlucks, not like this. Whether I liked it or not, they were coming. I therefore choose to like something different. Limitations. I hummed lightly as I made my way to the guest room to change the sheets, not out of satisfaction, but out of calculation. I had made my first call before the second pillow was fluffed. I had gotten by for decades, rooms that I didn't own. I crept into kitchens. 6 years after Roger's death, I was still in their basement, cooking school lunches and folding their laundry, for which I never received gratitude. Camden had said, "Just until you find your footing." Mom, I believed him. I always did. Rent was not charged. Kinley was often bringing that up. However, they gathered everything else. My hands, my silence, my time. This cottage was significant because of this, not because of the recently tiled bathroom, the size, or the view of the lake. It was all mine. I had saved for it in the same manner that other ladies my age did for cruises or operations. No co-signers, no loans, and no joint title. However, I knew this wouldn't be easy even before Kinley's call. She had always regarded my belongings as a common asset. She would bring whatever I cooked to her book group. She told me that if I bought new towels... Oh, good. We needed more. If I sat down, she added, "Could you grab me the remote?" The house was new, but The dynamic wasn't. I didn't freak out when she informed me that 20 people were coming. I got ready. I shook out the blankets and stripped the spare beds. Rhonda, Kinley's youngest sister, suffered from eczema. If the linens were itchy, she would complain. I used vinegar to clean the bathroom sink. Toothpaste would still be left in it. I spread out the folded towels. By the conclusion of the journey, I knew half would be gone. I didn't do it because I was afraid. The second page of my yellow notepad didn't list towels or snacks, so I did it the way you might arrange the scene before the last act, carefully, exactly, and with an odd calm. It included line items, occupancy caps, municipal ordinance codes, and guest policies. A notary had spoken with me. I was prepared with the template. One more step would be all it took, and that step would come with a snap of gravel under strange tires. Less than midday, the first van arrived. After 10 minutes, the second came, followed by the sedan and 3 individuals with foldable chairs and unearned vigor. As they spilled out onto the gravel 22, I counted. Kinley either didn't care or miscounted. The greetings lacked coordination and were noisy. Some of them gave me a nod. No congrats on the new house, no hugs. One cousin pulled in a rolling luggage and gave a hazy wave. Without asking, someone else opened the refrigerator. Neither flowers nor casseroles were included. They included tangled phone chargers, travel mugs, Bluetooth speakers, and inquiries that weren't actually questions. What is the password for the Wi-Fi? Downstairs, you have a single bathroom. Tell me you have oat milk, please. I didn't respond. I simply moved out of the way. They moved as if they had been here before, as if this was a relocation rather than a guest visit. Without asking, the oldest aunt occupied the main bedroom. The twin bed I had prepared for Camden's visit next month was damaged when Kinley's cousin placed her bag on it, and 2 adolescents were already fighting over whose bed had a better view when I got back from placing their outerwear in the hall closet. I went to the tiny den, the one with the flickering lamp and the pull-out couch. Silently, I collected my belongings from the larger guest room. Nobody volunteered to assist. I wasn't asked if I was comfortable giving up my personal space. I was carrying my folded clothing when Kinley caught me. She smiled empathetically. The kind of clothes that people wear once they've already decided for you. She put her hand on my shoulder and murmured, "It's only 2 weeks." "Be adaptable," I said. "I have discovered that flexibility is only valued when it helps the individual requesting it." Without saying a word, I took the house's tiniest room. Then, with purpose rather than force, I closed the door, and by nightfall, I had completed editing the contract that nobody knew was there. I carefully set the receipt down on the dining table, between someone's wet flip-flops and a partially empty bottle of sriracha. I folded my hands and added, "Just for transparency." Kinley, hardly stopping between nibbles, took a quick look at it. "We'll Venmo you later," she said with a laugh, nudging her cousin, who was already scrolling on his phone. No one asked what I had bought. No one offered to split it. I watched them pass plates like it was a potluck they hosted later that afternoon. Someone spilled grape soda all over the porch cushions. No one cleaned it. They just flipped the cushion over and walked away. That same evening, Kinley's brother tried to fix the slow-dripping bathroom faucet after I mentioned it. 10 minutes later, I heard metal snap, followed by him muttering something about cheap fixtures. The water shut-off valve was twisted out of place. The house smelled like takeout and spilled beer by the 3rd night. I heard music playing at midnight from 2 different rooms. My kitchen knives had been moved. The toilet paper holder was broken off the wall. I stopped asking. I just noted. I wiped down counters, swept up trail mix from the hallway carpet, replaced a cracked plate with one from the backup set ID hidden in the top cupboard before they arrived. They brought their noise and their appetite, but what they really brought was entitlement. By day 5, I knew I wasn't waiting on a Venmo transfer. I wasn't waiting on respect either, so I stepped outside onto the porch that still smelled faintly of artificial grape and opened the folder ID tucked beneath the garden gloves. My fingers didn't hesitate. The phone rang 3 times before she answered. "Mrs. Are you ready, Marish?" the voice asked. "Yes," I said. "I finished hosting." She asked if I had the papers printed. I said yes. I already had them stacked on the dining room buffet next to the folded receipt no one ever touched. By sunrise, I was already up. The house was quiet in that bloated way a place gets after being overfilled. Too many shoes by the door. Too many voices still hanging in the air from the night before. I taped 2 notices on the front entry. private property, short-term lodging agreement required for all guests. Then I walked to the dining table, cleared away empty coffee cups and someone's half-finished cereal, and set out 22 neatly printed copies. Each document listed the same 3 items, 140 per person, per night. All damages billed separately. Full deposit required in advance. I placed a pen beside each stack. When Kinley came downstairs, she was in a hoodie that didn't belong to her. She glanced at the notices, then at the table. "What is this?" she asked, blinking sleep out of her voice. "A lodging agreement," I said. Her laugh was short, clipped. "Okay, funny." She picked up a page, skimmed it, and looked back at me. "You're serious?" I didn't respond. I just walked to the front door, unlocked it, and stepped aside. He pulled up right on time. Deputy Clem, punctual as always. We'd spoken twice this week. Once about the noise complaints, once about occupancy limits for a residential zone. He stepped in, nodded at me, and looked around. "Morning," he said. "This the group." Kinley's face went pale. "You called the police on your own family." I corrected her gently. "No, I called the county office. This is enforcement." Camden appeared in the hallway, rubbing his eyes. He opened his mouth but didn't speak. I could see the weight of it land on him. The contracts, the printed receipts, the timeline that proved this wasn't as sudden. Deputy Clem cleared his throat. "Everyone here will need to sign the agreement or vacate by this evening." Kinley dropped the paper like it burned. "You're unbelievable." I folded my hands. "You're welcome to stay, Kinley, but not for free." "Not anymore." Kinley's voice cracked on the second syllable. "You're not actually enforcing this." "Are you?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even blink. "I am," I said, handing Deputy Clem the first folder. "Everything S here. Recorded call, time-stamped message, occupancy caps, neighborhood policy." I filled out my side of each agreement. Camden stepped forward, arms crossed, trying to play the middle like he always did. "Mom, come on, this is unnecessary. They were just staying a little while." Deputy Clem flipped through the pages, nodding slowly. "Actually," he said, "it is perfectly lawful and you were informed verbally and in writing." She gave notice. "These aren't tea guests. They re-occupants without permission." Kinley's cousin muttered something about insane old women. Someone in the back scoffed, but the Aunt Gwen. I think she was the one who snapped. "You think you can charge us like some damn Airbnb?" she shouted. "Your family." I turned to face her. "No, you were not. You were Kinley's family. You've never sent me a birthday card, never invited me to anything. And I've spent the last 5 days cleaning up your mess." Camden's face flushed with color. I watched him chew his cheek the way he always did when he knew he couldn't fix something. I handed Clem a second stack copies of text messages, printouts of the email ID sent 2 nights ago that no one had opened. All of it organized, numbered, flagged. Kinley looked at me like she didn't recognize me. She really recorded the call. She said to no one in particular. "Yes," I answered plainly. I did. Silence settled like dust. No one was laughing anymore. No one asked where the Wi-Fi was. No one assumed I'd be cooking dinner. I walked to the side table, unlocked the drawer, and pulled out the deposit forms. Clem looked over at me. "Shall I start collecting signatures?" I didn't smile, but I did nod, and when I turned to grab a fresh pen, I heard the sound of someone packing upstairs by sunset. The driveway was a shuffle of dragging wheels, slammed trunks, and low, bitter voices. The 2 vans were packed again, pillows stuffed into back windows, folding chairs crammed between duffel bags. Someone knocked over my flower pots on the way out. No apology, just the sound of feet moving faster. One of the younger cousins threw their arm out the window as they pulled away, shouting, "You all die alone! I didn't wince! I didn't blink!" I held the clipboard while I stood at the gate. It was heavier than it appeared, not because of the paper, but rather because I had finally made my own decision. Kinley followed Camden as he made his way to the automobile. She crossed her arms and had a tight mouth. It wasn't until she got to the pavement that she turned to face me. She said, "You made this hostile." The final shot of words lands. I remarked quietly as I glanced at her. "No." I simply stated it clearly. Camden avoided looking at me. He climbed in, shut the door, and looked straight ahead. I waited until the vehicle and both vans had vanished around the street's bend. The border of the note that was still taped to the porch was lifted by the slight wind. I went back in the direction of the home. I opened the door and entered. No footsteps above, no voices, no sound was coming through the walls. Quiet. I placed the clipboard on the counter in the kitchen. Where someone had left a soda cup, I wiped the dust ring, removed the rubbish. After the pandemonium, I lit the little candle I had been storing. Gentle shadows were created on the tile by the flame's flicker. I sat down at the dining table for the first time in more than a week, not to clean, not to count receipts, not to write notes or warnings, simply to sit. The silence wasn't void either. Everything they didn't bring with them was in it. Space, tranquility, and dignity that were all mine once more. After taking a deep breath, I grabbed the envelope that Camden had left on the side table. They opened the packet. He wrote in tight, meticulous strokes that were known to him from school when he didn't want to get marked down for smearing. "I hope you realize how frigid this was at some point," it said. That was all. No signature. That line alone, sitting there as if it were the last word. I refrained from crying. I didn't read it again or crumble it, searching for syllables that are gentle. I slid it into the fireplace after folding it once and again. The blaze spread quickly, paper curls as if it were pleading for forgiveness. I refused to give it that. After that, I took my time moving through the house. Towels had been crushed on the floor by Kinley. There was still a makeup bag in the guest bathroom, tipped sideways. The sink is covered in powder particles. The beds weren't made. Halfway off the corners are sheets. An afterthought, a piece of pizza crust left on a windowsill. Nothing was picked up by me. I made one more call instead. The following day, a cleaning service showed there by midday. 2 women who are efficient and caring. I left them alone after making them tea. The mess they left behind was not cleaned up by me. I made a record of it, took pictures, noted any damage, and recorded the hours. I then forwarded an invoice to Kinley. A legible copy of the short-term rental agreement was attached. At the bottom, her name was written in big, impatient strokes. Even now I recognized. The email was titled, "Final Statement for Your Stay." No emotions, no guilt, just facts and figures, just what she'd ignored when she assumed the rules didn't apply to her. This wasn't punishment. It was math. It was boundaries tallied and delivered. I didn't wait for a reply. I closed my laptop, poured myself a cup of strong coffee, and sat by the window overlooking the gravel path. The sky was pale, the kind of blue that feels like a new page. And when I opened my drawer to file the receipt, I noticed the untouched stack of welcome cards I'd bought before they arrived. Still wrapped, still waiting, still mine. A week passed just like that. No messages, no sudden knock at the door, no last-minute arrivals with coolers and duffel bags. I spent the first morning replanting the front garden. The soil was dry where the folding chairs had sunk in. I pulled the weeds, trimmed the lavender, and reset the stepping stones that had been kicked out of place. It felt good, quiet, steady work. No one rushing me, no one asking where the extension cord was or if I had another air mattress. I made tea in the kitchen just before noon, not for guests, not for anyone but me. I used the good cup, the one with the small crack. Back. I always worried someone else would break. A neighbor I hadn't met yet waved from the sidewalk. Another one stopped by with muffins, said she noticed I'd finally moved in. She didn't ask questions. She just smiled, handed over the tin, and said, "Welcome inside." The silence wasn't suntit lonely. It was restorative. The kind that fills your chest slowly and lets your shoulders fall an inch lower. No loud voices bouncing down the hall. No music thumping through the ceiling. No one asking if I had gluten-free bread or a charger for their third phone. The laundry basket was empty. The sink was clean. I watered the plants, straightened the chairs, and opened all the windows just because I could. No one asked me to change the thermostat. No one told me the meal plan should be more balanced. No one told me I was being rigid for expecting a little respect in my own home. The house didn't feel big. It felt just right. There were no calls from Camden, no texts from Kinley, but I didn't feel erased. I felt unburdened. Sometimes choosing peace doesn't come with applause. It comes with stillness. I sat at the edge of the garden in the late afternoon, watching a squirrel try to outrun its own shadow. And when I looked up at the wind chimes I'd finally hung, I noticed something I hadn't seen in years. They were moving only when the wind allowed. Kinley called again 2 nights ago, then twice more yesterday. No voicemail, just missed calls and a string of texts, some polite, some sharp, one that simply said, "We need to talk." Camden followed with a message of his own. "Can we clear the air?" "It has been long enough." I didn't answer, not out of spite, not because I was angry, because I was finished. This house was never meant to be a revolving door or a doormat. It wasn't built to carry the weight of everyone else's expectations. It was mine, still is, and now it feels like it. The locks were changed. The porch sign that used to say, "Welcome now," reads, "By appointment only." Not out of cruelty, but clarity. I kept the guest room tidy, but I no longer pretend it's available. I cook for one. I grocery shop without a list of other people's preferences. My days are quiet and my nights are mine. I spoke to my lawyer 2 days after the last car pulled away. We updated the deed, not the ownership, but the clause. One line, plain and binding inheritance is contingent upon demonstrated respect. It is not vengeance, it is a structure. It is a map for those who thought my silence meant weakness. Kinley will likely call again. Camden, too. They want to understand, not right away, because when people are used to taking, they mistake boundaries for betrayal. But this was never a feud. I am not fighting. I am preserving. The house is still filled with light in the mornings. The plants have started to bloom again, and the wind chimes sing when they want to, not when someone forces them. Respect doesn't require permission to exist. It just stops waiting for approval. And as I closed the folder on the final set of notarized pages, I felt no weight, just certainty. I placed it in the drawer beside the key box, locked it, and turned back toward the